Very difficult task, given the high amount of interesting points. But I will say, first of all, that we have seen in our presentations, and the policymakers need to realize that, yes, there is a lack of access to women, access to such as land, access such as extension services and so on, but that not always this is enough. Access are needed, but we can see that there are cases in which even when women have access to land, for instance, or access to livestock, as in the Peruvian case, they lack the access to decision making, and then they are affected but compared to men in a much more worse situation. No? This brings us also to the question of intersectionality, the fact that not only that a woman is the single category, and this was raised this morning as well, and it was also raised in the CSA conference, the fact that we need to look at the complexity of the topic, so it's the woman, but also the age or the social class. Second point is the fact that policymakers need to look or need to cooperate. So different ministries like Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Public Health, they also need to look at the issue from this complex perspective, because what we have seen, for instance, is that policies which have been market-oriented may have favored a kind of land use change, because they were favoring a type of agriculture for export to Asia. That was also the case of the maca culture, but they were not looking at the environmental services provided by the activity of women, which was more livestock-based, and they had mitigation, carbon sequestration, and of course providing other environmental services. So if they had policies more focused on this environmental part, environmental services, climate change mitigation, and so probably land use change would have been different. So that means that we need to, as from the policy making perspective, look at the coordination and put of the different needs, objectives, and then develop strategies as required to different contexts. The other thing which has been raised in the third point, that I have to decide which one I will highlight, is the need for institutions at local level. So that means that women rely more on local institutions, some of them informal institutions, community-based institutions which support social needs, and sometimes policymakers are more thinking on national policies or even intermediate policies, but women rely more, or not, we cannot generalize, of course, but in several contexts, women are more reliant on these local and informal institutions that support their needs more directly. So what does it mean? That means in terms of policymakers that they need to engage with people, they need to ask people, and they need to recognize the differences and the diversity existing in the context, the difference between men and women, and the different needs, but also the different preferences. So we may have different needs, but also, as we have seen with the climate information system, they have different preferences on how they access to this information. Women prefer radio, while men probably prefer mobile phones. So that means we need to consider all this diversity in order to develop the more efficient policies targeting both men and women.